My mother died on September 14, 2025, at the age of 67. Lung cancer, though she never smoked a day in her life. It took her fast diagnosis in May, gone by September. Maybe that was a mercy. I don't know. Her funeral was small. Me, my sister Beth, a handful of people from her church, some neighbors. Mom had always been quiet, private, the kind of person who kept to herself. She worked as a librarian for 40 years, lived in the same small house in Des Moines, Iowa, for my entire life, never remarried after my father died when I was 7. She was predictable. Stable. Boring, if I'm honest. The most exciting thing about her was her obsessive love of true crime documentaries, which she'd watch every night before bed. I thought I knew everything about her. After 35 years as her son, I thought there was nothing left to discover. I was wrong. Beth and I spent the week after the funeral clearing out Mom's house, preparing it to be sold. It was sad, sorting through a life's worth of belongings, but also oddly mundane. Clothes to donate, furniture to sell, photos to divide between us. The usual debris of an ordinary life. We were in her bedroom, Beth handling the closet, me working on the dresser and nightstands, when I reached under the bed to pull out a storage bin. My hand hit something solid. Not the plastic bin I was expecting, but something wooden. A box. I pulled it out. It was about the size of a shoebox, made of dark wood, with a small brass lock on the front. It was heavy, and when I shook it gently, I heard things shifting inside. Beth, look at this, I said. She came over, wiping dust from her hands. What is that? I don't know. It was under the bed. I tried the lock. It's locked. Maybe there's a key somewhere. We searched the nightstand drawers, the dresser, the closet. No key. We could just break it open, Beth suggested. Something made me hesitate. This box had been under Mom's bed, hidden away, locked. She'd kept it secret our entire lives? Breaking it open felt like a violation somehow. But she was gone. And whatever was in this box, it belonged to her children now. I got a screwdriver from the garage and pried the lock open. The old brass gave way easily, and the lid creaked as I lifted it. Inside were layers of things, carefully organized, like Mom had known exactly what order she wanted them discovered in. On top was a stack of newspaper clippings, yellowed with age. I picked up the first one. It was from the Cedar Rapids Gazette, dated March 15, 1988, 2 months after my father died. The headline read, "Local man dies in apparent suicide. Police investigate." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Beth, I said quietly. Look at this. She read over my shoulder. The article was short, clinical. Thomas Morrison, 38, had been found dead in his car in the garage, the engine running, carbon monoxide poisoning. He'd left no note. Police were investigating, but preliminary findings suggested suicide. They told us it was a heart attack, Beth whispered. They said Dad had a heart attack in the garage. That's what we'd been told our entire lives. Dad had a heart attack while working on the car. Quick, painless, nothing anyone could have done. Mom had found him and called 911, but it was too late. We'd grown up believing that. I was 7 when it happened. Beth was 9. We'd mourned our father but taken comfort in the fact that it had been sudden, that he hadn't suffered. That it was just one of those tragic things that happen sometimes. But this article said suicide. Deliberate. A choice he'd made to leave us. Why would Mom lie about that for 35 years? I kept reading through the clippings. There were more articles about Dad's death, each one reinforcing that it had been ruled a suicide. Then, a few weeks later, a small article with the headline, "Suicide Ruling Questioned by Family." It quoted my mother, "Thomas would never have left his children. He loved them too much. This wasn't suicide. Someone needs to investigate what really happened." But there were no follow-up articles. The investigation, if there was one, went nowhere. The death remained classified as suicide. Beneath the newspaper clippings were photographs. Old ones, from before I was born. I didn't recognize most of the people in them, but I recognized my mother much younger, maybe early 20s, with longer hair and a harder look in her eyes than I'd ever seen. In one photo, she was standing with a man who wasn't my father. They had their arms around each other, both smiling. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, me and Ray, 1975. Who the hell is Ray? Beth asked. I had no idea. I'd never heard Mom mention anyone named Ray. There were more photos of them together. At a beach. At a bar. In what looked like a very cheap apartment. They looked young and in love and nothing like the quiet, reserved mother I'd known. Beneath the photos was a driver's license. I pulled it out and my breath caught. It wasn't my mother's license. Or rather, it was her face, but the name was wrong, Rachel Morrison. Not Ruth Morrison, which was her name. Rachel. The address was in Denver, Colorado. The issue date was 1977. The birth date listed would have made her 3 years younger than she'd always told us she was. What the fuck, Beth breathed. I kept digging. There was a marriage certificate. Rachel Ann Morrison married Raymond Michael Foster on June 12, 1976, in Denver, Colorado. My mother had been married before. To someone named Ray. And she'd been using a different name. This doesn't make sense, I said. Mom was Ruth Morrison before she married Dad. That's what she always told us. Ruth Morrison, from Des Moines, met our dad at a library convention in 1980, got married in 1981. That's the story? Then who the hell is Rachel? Beth demanded. We kept going through the box. There were more newspaper clippings, these ones from Denver papers, dated 1978 and 1979. Missing person reports. A young woman named Rachel Foster, 24, had disappeared in October 1979. Her husband Raymond reported her missing. Police were investigating. No leads. No body found. I felt sick. This missing woman looked exactly like my mother. Oh my God, Beth said. Mom. Mom was this Rachel person. She was reported missing. But she wasn't missing, she was. She ran away, I finished. She faked her disappearance and started over somewhere else with a new name. But why? Why would our quiet, respectable mother need to run away and assume a new identity? The answer was in the next set of clippings. Raymond Foster arrested in connection with wife's disappearance, read one headline from December 1979. I read the article with shaking hands. Raymond Foster had been arrested on suspicion of murdering his wife Rachel. Prosecutors alleged he'd killed her during a domestic dispute and disposed of her body. Neighbors reported hearing violent fights from their apartment. Rachel's friend said she'd been trying to leave him, that she was scared of him. But they'd never found a body. The case went to trial in 1980, but without a body or concrete evidence, Raymond Foster was acquitted. The article included his photo, the same man from the pictures in the box, but older, harder, meaner looking. And then, 3 articles later, acquitted man dies in house fire. Raymond Foster had died in a fire at his Denver home in January 1988. Just weeks before my father's supposed suicide. The fire had been ruled accidental. He'd been drinking, fell asleep with a cigarette, the whole house went up. They'd had to identify him through dental records because the body was so badly burned. I sat back on the floor, trying to piece it together. My mother Rachel, not Ruth, had been in an abusive marriage. She'd faked her disappearance to escape. Changed her name, moved to Iowa, started over. Met my father, told him some version of the story, or maybe not, got married, had kids, lived a quiet life for years. And then her abusive ex-husband was acquitted of her murder. And weeks later, my father died in what was called a suicide, but what Mom apparently believed was something else. You don't think? Beth started, then stopped. That Ray somehow found them. I finished. That he killed Dad. It seemed crazy. But Mom had kept all of this hidden. She'd kept these clippings, these photos, this evidence of a whole other life. Why, unless it mattered? Unless it was connected to everything that came after? There was more in the box. Beneath all the clippings and photos, at the very bottom, was a thick manila envelope. Inside were pages and pages of notes in my mother's handwriting, dated over the years. A kind of journal, I realized. Not regular entries, but occasional ones, written when something significant happened. I started reading. October 15, 1979, I left today. I packed one bag, took the money I'd been hiding, and I left while Ray was at work. I'm in Omaha now, at a bus station, trying to figure out where to go next. I can't go back. If I go back, he'll kill me. He almost did last night. I saw it in his eyes. So I'm gone. Rachel Foster is gone. I have to become someone else. November 2nd, 1979, new name, new ID, new life. It cost most of my money, but it's done. I'm Ruth Morrison now. From Des Moines, though I've never been there before yesterday. I need to memorize my new birthday, my new history. I need to forget Rachel ever existed. December 20th, 1979, Ray's been arrested for my murder. I saw it on the news at a diner in Kansas City. They think he killed me. Good. Let them think that. Let him rot in prison. I'm never going back, never testifying, never revealing that I'm alive. This is my escape. June 10, 1980, he was acquitted. No body, no case. He's free. I'm watching the news in my shitty apartment in Des Moines and he's walking free. He knows I'm alive now. He has to know. Which means I'm not safe. I'll never be safe as long as he's alive. August 3, 1980, I met someone. Thomas. He's kind, gentle, everything Ray wasn't. I shouldn't let myself feel this way. I shouldn't drag him into my mess. But God, I'm so lonely. And he looks at me like I'm worth something. December 1st, 1981, I married Thomas today. I told him everything. About Ray, about running, about the new identity. I thought he'd leave, thought he'd be horrified. But he held me and said we'd handle it together. He said if Ray ever found us, he'd protect me. I love him so much. I don't deserve him. I stopped reading, tears streaming down my face. My father had known. He'd known everything, and he'd married her anyway. He'd promised to protect her. Beth was crying too. Keep reading, she said. May 15, 1983, Thomas Alexander was born today. We're calling him Alex. He's perfect. And I'm terrified. What if Ray finds us? What if my past destroys this beautiful life I've built? Thomas says not to worry, that we're safe, that Ray doesn't even know Ruth Morrison exists. But I'm scared every day. October 8, 1985, Elizabeth was born. 2 kids now. 2 hostages to the life I ran from. What kind of mother am I, bringing children into this? But I can't help loving them. They're everything. I skipped ahead, looking for entries from around the time Dad died. January 3, 1988, Ray found us. I don't know how, but he found us. Thomas saw him sitting in a car outside the house yesterday. He went out to confront him. I don't know what was said, but Thomas came back shaking. He said Ray wants money. A lot of money, or he'll tell everyone who I really am. He'll destroy our life. January 20, 1988, Thomas is giving him the money. $50,000, everything we've saved, our entire future. He's meeting Ray tonight to hand it over. He says after this, it'll be done. Ray will leave us alone. I don't believe it. Men like Ray don't just leave. But what choice do we have? The next entry was dated February 5, 1988, the day after my father died. February 5, 1988, Thomas is dead. They're saying suicide. Carbon monoxide in the garage. But that's a lie. Ray killed him. I know he did. Thomas went to meet Ray last night with the money, and he never came home. And this morning the police are at my door saying Thomas is dead in the garage, saying he killed himself, and I know it's a lie. I called the police. I told them it wasn't suicide, that someone needed to investigate. But they looked at me like I was crazy. A grieving widow in denial. They found no evidence of foul play. No signs of a struggle. Thomas's fingerprints were the only ones in the car. How did Ray do it? How did he make it look like suicide? I can't tell them about Ray. If I do, everything comes out. Rachel Foster is alive. I'm alive. My whole identity is a lie. I'll lose my kids. I could go to jail. So I have to stay quiet and let them call it suicide and let Ray get away with murdering my husband. I hate myself. I hate that my past killed the man I love. And I hate that I have to keep lying, keep pretending, keep being Ruth Morrison who lost her husband to suicide, when the truth is so much worse. January 31, 1988, Ray's dead. House fire in Denver. They're calling it an accident. But I know better. I know because 2 days before the fire, I drove to Denver. I found his house. And I made sure he'd never hurt anyone ever again. I can't write the details. Can't admit what I did. But Ray Foster is dead, and my children are safe, and Thomas is avenged. That has to be enough. The journal ended there. The last entry, my mother confessing to murder. To killing the man who'd killed my father. I looked at Beth. She was pale, shaking. Mom killed him, she whispered. She killed that guy. She avenged Dad. He killed Dad first, I said. If what she wrote is true, Ray murdered Dad and made it look like suicide. She got justice the only way she could. But my hands were shaking as I said it. Because my mother, quiet, boring, librarian Ruth Morrison, was actually Rachel Foster, a woman who'd faked her own death, assumed a new identity, and eventually committed murder. And she'd lived with those secrets for 37 years. She'd raised us, loved us, lived a normal life, all while carrying the weight of everything she'd done. What do we do with this? Beth asked, gesturing to the box and its contents. I didn't know. We couldn't go to the police. The statute of limitations on identity fraud might have passed, but murder? That doesn't expire. And even though Mom was dead, the truth coming out would destroy her memory, would destroy our understanding of who she was. It would also destroy us. We'd be known as the children of a murderer, of a woman who'd lived a lie. We burn it, I said finally. All of it? We burn it and we never speak of this again. Beth nodded slowly. Are you sure? No. But what else can we do? Mom kept this hidden for a reason. She didn't want us to know. And she's gone now, so we can't ask her why she kept it, or what she wanted us to do with it. Maybe she wanted us to find it, Beth said. Maybe that's why she kept everything. So someday we'd understand. Understand what? That she did what she had to do. That she protected us the only way she knew how. That she wasn't perfect, but she loved us. I thought about that. About my mother, both versions of her, Rachel and Ruth, and the choices she'd made. Running from an abuser. Starting over. Finding love again. Losing that love to the man she'd escaped. Taking revenge. Were those the actions of a good person? A bad person? Or just a person, doing what they thought they had to do to survive and protect their family? We didn't burn the box that night. I took it home with me, and I've been sitting with it for the past month, reading and rereading Mom's journal, looking at the photos of young Rachel and Ray, trying to understand. I've done research. Found Raymond Foster's death certificate, accidental fire, just like Mom said. Found his criminal record, multiple arrests for assault, domestic violence, restraining orders from 3 different women before Rachel. He was a monster. The world is better without him. I found the records from my father's death too. Ruled suicide, case closed. No investigation, no follow-up. They found him in the car, engine running, carbon monoxide levels consistent with poisoning. His fingerprints on the ignition. No signs of struggle. But if what Mom wrote is true, Ray somehow killed him and staged it. Maybe drugged him first, put him in the car, started the engine. Maybe Dad was already unconscious when it happened. I'll never know. I've thought about trying to find people who knew Rachel and Ray back in Denver. Friends, neighbors, anyone who could confirm Mom's story about the abuse. But what would be the point? She's gone. Ray's gone. My father's gone. The only people left are me and Beth, and we have to decide what to do with the truth. Last night, I had a dream about Mom. She was young, like in the photos from the box, but she was in our old kitchen in Des Moines, making dinner like she did every night of my childhood. Mom, I said in the dream. Why didn't you tell us? She smiled, sad and tired. Would it have helped? Would it have made you feel safer, knowing your mother was a murderer? Knowing your father died because of my past? But we could have understood. We could have. You were children, she interrupted. You needed a mother who was stable, boring, safe. Not a mother who was running from her past and living under a fake name. So that's who I became. Ruth Morrison, the librarian, the widow, the woman with nothing interesting about her except her obsession with true crime shows. She laughed softly. I always found that ironic, by the way. Watching all those shows about people who committed crimes and got caught. Maybe I was punishing myself. Or maybe I was just making sure I knew how not to get caught. Did you ever regret it? I asked. Killing Ray. She was quiet for a long moment. No, she finally said. He killed Thomas. He would have come after you kids eventually. Someone had to stop him, and the police weren't going to do it. So I did. And I'd do it again. I woke up with tears on my face. I don't know what the truth is about my mother. I don't know if she was a hero or a villain or just a deeply flawed person who made impossible choices in impossible situations. But I know this, she loved us. She protected us. She gave up her entire identity, lived a life for decades, carried the weight of terrible secrets all to give me and Beth a normal, safe life. And maybe that's enough. Beth and I made a decision yesterday. We're keeping the box, but we're not burning it. We're putting it in a safety deposit box, locked away, with instructions that it should only be opened if something happens that makes the truth necessary. If someone starts investigating Dad's death as something other than suicide. If Ray's case somehow gets reopened. If there's a reason the truth needs to come out. But otherwise, it stays hidden. Just like Mom kept it hidden for 37 years. Ruth Morrison died of lung cancer, age 67, after 40 years as a beloved librarian. She was predeceased by her husband Thomas, who died of a heart attack in 1988. She is survived by her children Alex and Elizabeth, and her 4 grandchildren. That's the truth we're keeping. The truth that preserves her memory, that lets her rest in peace, that doesn't destroy everything she built. Rachel Foster, the woman who ran, who started over, who killed to protect her family, she stays in the box under the bed. Where Mom kept her for all those years. Some secrets, maybe, are meant to stay buried. But I can't lie knowing this changes everything. Every memory I have of my mother is now tinged with this knowledge. When I remember her helping me with homework, I think, she was living under a fake identity. When I remember her at Dad's funeral, crying, I think, she knew it wasn't suicide. When I remember her watching her true crime shows, I think, she was a murderer. But I also remember her teaching me to read, and making my favorite cookies when I was sick, and coming to every single one of my baseball games even though she knew nothing about baseball. I remember her loving me, purely and completely, for my entire life. And maybe that's what matters. Not who she was before I was born, not what she did to survive, not the secrets she kept. But who she was to me. To Beth. To our kids. She was Mom. Imperfect, complicated, human. With a past that would shock anyone who knew her, and a love that was absolutely real. I miss her. God, I miss her so much. And I wish I could talk to her about all of this. I wish I could ask her the 1,000 questions I have, hear her side of the story in her own words. Understand what it was like to carry those secrets for so long. But she's gone. And the only record of her truth is in a box under what used to be her bed, filled with clippings and photos and a journal that explains everything and nothing. So Beth and I will keep her secret. We'll let her be Ruth Morrison, boring librarian, loving mother, woman who lived an ordinary life. And we'll be the only ones who know the truth, that she was extraordinary. That she survived. That she fought. That she did terrible things for understandable reasons. That she was both Ruth and Rachel, both versions true, both versions her. And that she loved us enough to make sure we never had to know any of this until she was gone and safe from the consequences. Mom, wherever you are, I understand now. I understand why you kept the box. Why you locked it away but couldn't destroy it. Why you needed there to be some record, some proof that Rachel Foster existed and survived and protected her family. I understand, and I forgive you, and I'm grateful. For everything you did. For everything you were. For all the versions of yourself that you buried so that Beth and I could have normal lives. You were a good mother. Whatever else you were a good mother. And that's the only truth that really matters.